Right now, while you're watching this, your savings account is being drained, not by hackers, not by fees, not by anything you can see on your bank statement. The number stays the same. The balance looks untouched, but the wealth it represents is vanishing. And here's the part that should unsettle you. The people who designed this system know exactly what's happening. They just don't want you to figure it out. Because if you did, if everyone did, the entire game would collapse overnight. Most people believe that keeping money in cash is safe. They believe that putting it in a savings account is responsible. They've been told their entire lives that this is how you build security. Save your money, don't take risks, let it sit, let it grow. But what if I told you that this advice, this foundational belief that's been drilled into you since childhood, is one of the greatest wealth transfers in modern history? What if the people giving you that advice are the same people benefiting from your obedience? By the end of this video, you're going to see your cash savings in a completely different light, and you're going to understand why the wealthiest institutions on the planet don't hold cash. They hold assets, real assets, and they've structured the entire monetary system to ensure that your cash flows upward into their hands while you're left holding a shrinking bag. Let's start with what you've been told. The official story goes something like this. Inflation is a natural part of a healthy economy. A little bit of rising prices is actually good because it encourages spending, investment, and growth. Central banks aim for around 2% inflation per year because that's the sweet spot. Prices go up slowly, wages follow, and everyone stays happy. If you keep your money in a bank, you earn interest, and that interest is supposed to help offset the effects of inflation. It all sounds reasonable. It sounds like the system is working for you. But here's where the narrative starts to crack. That 2% target, where did it come from? Was it based on rigorous economic modeling? Was it the result of decades of research into what's best for ordinary people? No. It came from a casual comment by a central banker in New Zealand in the late 1980s. That's it. A number pulled from the air that became global monetary policy. And now every major central bank in the world treats 2% like it's a law of nature. But it isn't. It's a policy choice. And that choice has consequences that are never explained to you. 2% per year might sound harmless, but compounded over time, it becomes devastating. In 10 years, your cash loses nearly 20% of its purchasing power. In 20 years, you've lost over a third. In 30 years, almost half. That retirement fund you thought was secure, that emergency savings you built up over decades, it's being hollowed out from the inside, and the official inflation numbers don't even tell the full story. This is the part that most people never hear. The way inflation is measured has been quietly changed multiple times over the past 50 years. The formulas used by government agencies today are not the same formulas used in the 1970s or 80s, and every single change has had the same effect, making inflation look lower than it actually is. Items are substituted. If steak gets too expensive, the formula assumes you'll switch to chicken, so they measure chicken. Hedonic adjustments are made. If your phone is more powerful than last year's model, the price is adjusted downward on paper even if you paid more. Weightings are shifted to minimize the impact of housing, healthcare, and education, the very things that consume most of your actual income. If you measured inflation today using the methods from 1980, the number wouldn't be 2 or 3%. It would be closer to 10, maybe higher. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That's basic math using publicly available methodology. The data exists. But it's buried because if people understood how quickly their money was actually losing value, they would stop trusting the currency. And that trust is the only thing holding the entire system together. Let me show you what's really happening. Every time a central bank prints money, every time governments run deficits and borrow billions to cover the gap, they are increasing the total supply of currency in the system. More dollars chasing the same amount of goods and services. That's the definition of inflation. It's not some mysterious economic phenomenon. It's dilution. Your money is being diluted. And the people doing the diluting are the same people telling you that everything is fine, that 2% is normal, that your savings account is safe. But it gets worse because the new money that enters the system doesn't enter equally. It doesn't show up in your bank account. It shows up first in the hands of those closest to the source. Banks, large corporations, government contractors, financial institutions. They get access to the new money before prices adjust. They buy assets, real estate, stocks, commodities before the inflation ripples outward. By the time that money reaches you, by the time it filters down through wages and consumer spending, prices have already moved. You're always last. You're always paying more. And the purchasing power you lost went directly into the pockets of those who received the money first. This is called the Cantillon Effect. It was described nearly 300 years ago by a French economist who watched the same game being played with gold and silver back then. And nothing has changed. The mechanism is the same. The winners are the same. The losers are the same. Only now, with digital money creation and unlimited quantitative easing, the scale is unprecedented. What most people don't realize is that this isn't an accident. This is the intended function of the system. Inflation is a hidden tax. It allows governments to spend beyond their means without raising official tax rates. It allows debts to be repaid with money that's worth less than when it was borrowed. And it punishes the people who followed the rules, the savers, the cautious, the responsible, the ones who were told that holding cash was safe. Now let me tell you why this time is different. For decades, this game worked because people didn't notice. Inflation was low enough, or at least reported as low enough, that the erosion happened slowly, a few percent per year, background noise. But something changed in 2020. The floodgates opened. Central banks around the world printed more money in 2 years than they had in the previous decade combined. Trillions of dollars, euros, yen, and pounds were created out of nothing and injected into the system. And the effects were immediate. Prices surged, not the usual slow creep, a sudden visible spike. Housing costs exploded, food prices jumped, energy costs doubled and tripled in some regions. Suddenly, people could feel the inflation. They could see it in their grocery bills, their rent, their gas tanks. And for the first time in a generation, trust began to crack. This is the detail that changes everything. The system depends on trust. It depends on people believing that the currency is stable, that their savings are safe, that the numbers in their bank account represent real value. But once that belief starts to erode, once people start questioning whether their cash is actually worth holding, the entire structure becomes unstable. And we're seeing the early signs of that instability right now. Look at what's happening in the gold market. Central banks around the world are buying gold at a pace not seen in over 50 years. China, Russia, India, Poland, Turkey, even Western central banks that spent decades selling their gold reserves are now holding or quietly accumulating. Why? Because they know something. They know that the current monetary system is under stress. They know that confidence is fragile, and they're positioning themselves for what comes next. Meanwhile, what are you being told? Keep your cash. Stay in the system. Trust the banks. Don't worry about gold or silver or real assets. That's for paranoid doomsayers. The irony is staggering. The very institutions telling you that cash is safe are the same ones stockpiling hard assets behind closed doors. This is where it gets dangerous. The cost of holding cash isn't just the slow erosion over time, it's the opportunity cost. Every year, your money sits in a savings account earning 1 or 2%, while inflation runs at 5 or 8 or 10. You're falling further behind. But it's not just about what you're losing. It's about what others are gaining. While your cash stagnates, asset holders are watching their wealth multiply. Real estate owners, stockholders, precious metals investors, anyone holding something tangible, something that can't be printed, is pulling ahead. The gap between those who understand this game and those who don't is widening faster than ever. And the banks are profiting from both sides. They take your deposits, pay you almost nothing in interest, and lend that money out at multiples of what they gave you. They invest in assets, they collect fees, they create financial products that benefit from volatility and uncertainty. Your cash is the raw material for their profits, and you're subsidizing the entire operation without even knowing it. Let me show you the historical parallel that should terrify you. In 1971, the United States severed the last link between the dollar and gold. Before that, dollars could be exchanged for a fixed amount of gold. There was a ceiling on how much money could be printed because there had to be gold to back it. After 71, that ceiling disappeared, and since then, the dollar has lost over 98% of its purchasing power. Think about that. If your grandparents had saved $100 in 1971 and you inherited that same $100 today, it would buy what $2 bought back then. The number didn't change. The value did. That's the hidden cost. That's the theft that happens in plain sight, and it's accelerating. By the time this becomes obvious to everyone, it will be too late. The wealth transfer will have already happened. The people who understood the game will have already positioned themselves, and the people who trusted the system, who held cash, who followed the rules, will be left wondering what went wrong. This isn't speculation. This is what has happened in every currency system throughout history. Every fiat currency eventually returns to its intrinsic value, which is zero. The only question is timing. So what comes next? Here's what the data suggests. Governments are not going to stop printing money. They can't. The debts are too large to be repaid with honest money. The only way out is inflation. Inflate the debt away. Make the number smaller in real terms by making the currency worth less. This is the unspoken policy, and it means that holding cash is not just a passive position. It's an active bet against yourself. In the near term, you're going to see continued volatility, periods where inflation appears to slow and officials declare victory, followed by new surges that catch everyone off guard. You're going to see more central bank purchases of gold and hard assets. You're going to see more nations questioning the dominance of the dollar and seeking alternatives. You're going to see the gap between reported inflation and real inflation continue to widen as methodologies are adjusted further. And you're going to see ordinary people, the ones who wake up to this reality, start to move. They're going to convert their cash into things that can't be printed: real estate, commodities, precious metals, anything with intrinsic value. This movement is already happening. Gold prices have reached record highs. Silver demand is outpacing supply. Bullion dealers report shortages while paper markets claim there's plenty of inventory. The disconnect between the paper world and the physical world is growing. And at some point, that tension will resolve. It always does, usually violently. The trap has already been set. Most people won't realize they're in it until they try to buy something with their savings and discover it doesn't go as far as it used to, until they try to retire on a number that looked comfortable 10 years ago but now barely covers expenses, until they watch asset prices climb while their bank balance stays flat. The numbers are an illusion. The purchasing power is the reality, and the reality is being siphoned away every single day. There's a reason financial literacy isn't taught in schools. There's a reason the mainstream conversation about money focuses on budgeting and saving instead of understanding how the monetary system actually works. An informed population would be a dangerous population. They would ask uncomfortable questions. They would demand accountability. They would stop participating in a game that's rigged against them. But you're watching this, which means you're already ahead of most people. You're asking the questions that the system doesn't want asked. You're looking behind the curtain, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Your cash is not safe. It never was. It's a melting ice cube, losing mass every second, every minute, every day. The only question is whether you act on this knowledge or whether you let the slow drain continue. The wealthy understand this. They've always understood this. That's why generational wealth isn't held in savings accounts. It's held in land, in businesses, in gold and silver, in things that governments can't print, in things that retain value across decades and centuries. The secret isn't complicated. It's just hidden from you because your participation in the cash system is profitable for those who run it. Here's your final warning. The cost of holding cash during rising prices isn't just a number. It isn't just a percentage point here or there. It's your time, your labor, your years of work and sacrifice being quietly transferred to those who understand the game. Every day you hold cash while inflation runs hot is a day you're paying a tax that never appears on any statement, a tax that funds government spending, bank profits, and asset accumulation by the already wealthy. You are subsidizing your own decline, and the system is designed to make sure you never realize it. The question isn't whether this is happening, it is. The question is how much longer you're willing to let it happen before you do something about it. Your cash feels safe. That's the trap. The greatest deceptions don't feel like deceptions. They feel comfortable, they feel responsible, they feel like what everyone else is doing, so it must be right. But everyone else is losing too. The whole herd is being led in the same direction, and the destination isn't prosperity, it's dilution. It's poverty masked by stable numbers. It's a shrinking slice of an expanding pie that you were told would grow, but instead gets divided among more and more claims. By the time the mainstream admits what's happening, the opportunity to protect yourself will have passed. The prices will have moved. The assets will have been accumulated. The doors will be closing. This is how it always happens. The informed move first, the masses move last, and the gap between them becomes permanent. Look at your savings account. Look at the number. Now ask yourself what that number will buy in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20. If your answer is less than it buys today, then you already know the truth. You just haven't acted on it yet. The hidden cost is real. The theft is ongoing, and the clock is ticking. The only question left is whether you're going to keep watching your wealth disappear or whether you're finally going to understand what the wealthy have always known. Cash is not a safe haven. It's a slow motion trap, and you're sitting right in the middle of it.